Today's show is brought to you by locally owned and operated Highland Rim Speedway. Highland Rim Speedway is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year with great short-track, door-to-door stock car racing in a safe, family-friendly atmosphere. Visit their website at highlandrim.com. From the family grocery hauler to fire-breathing racing engines, the one name you need to know is USA Motor and Machine, located at 51 Cleveland Avenue in Nashville, Tennessee. Give them a call at 615-726-3725 or at usamotorandmachine.com.
Well, Carl Edwards flips for the first time in 2 years. Danica Patrick follows up a great Daytona with, and we'll get a definitive answer on the age-old big fish in a little pond or little fish in a big pond argument, and news from Highland Rim. All that and more coming up next on Pit Pass.
Bandwidth for today's show is brought to you by SoftLayer.com. We love SoftLayer here at Talkapolis. They are the greatest hosting company ever. They make everything easy. Check out their website at SoftLayer.com. Thanks again for sponsoring the show. Jeff Meeks and Chris Austin invite you to watch your favorite sports event at the Batter's Box at 43 Hermitage Avenue in Nashville, Tennessee. The Batter's Box offers shuttle service to all Titans home games. It's a great place for friends to gather for the game and after the game. So check out the Batter's Box Bar and Grill, and thanks again for sponsoring the show.
Microcasting for your city. Talkapolis.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome in to the latest edition of Pit Pass. I'm Joe Williams, along with Larry Woody and Larry. Race season is underway. Second race in 2 weeks.
The real season.
The real season is
Daytona's a warm-up. This is the real racing season now.
You think so?
Yeah. Daytona's show, circus, elephants, clowns. This is real racing.
Oh, wait a minute. Show, circus, animals, clowns. That sounds like something out of Texas or Charlotte.
No, a lot of people that do say, Joe, that the season starts to settle down at Phoenix, the second race, because Daytona is so much hoopla and just the whole Daytona frenzy. And then you settle down, and now you're down to the business of stock car racing.
Carl Edwards, flipper they call him, got to do his backflip in Phoenix, his Subway-sponsored car, winning the Subway race, Larry. First win for Carl in a couple of years, and you know it's got to make you feel better.
I noticed you said in your intro, Carl finally flips after 2 years. Now, Carl has flipped a few
that's
times.
true.
He just hadn't been the victory flip. We've seen
true.
Carl doing some flips inside his car. This time he did one outside, and good for Carl. He's a good spokesman for the sport. He's articulate, clean-cut, good guy, like most of the guys are. So really good win for Carl Edwards, a good win for NASCAR, I think.
I think you're right. Jimmy Johnson, here comes Mr. Consistency, wound up second. Does this scare you for the rest of the year?
It does, and it should scare NASCAR because, as we said before, Joe, Jimmy Johnson is such a nice guy, but he's so boring. And the last thing NASCAR needs, the sport needs, is a Jimmy Johnson runaway where he's got the thing, first place locked up halfway through the season. Everybody else is, scrambling for those other positions in the chase. They need some excitement, and Jimmy, bless his heart, is just not Mr. Excitement. He's no Jimmy Spencer.
The race as a whole was not the excitement that I had hoped to see with a new Gen 6 car at a track other than a super speedway or a restrictor plate race. We saw a lot of follow the leader.
Yep.
Did not see a whole lot of passing, track position, and it came down again to a stinking fuel mileage race. And folks, I'm sorry. I am not. Yes, I know that you got to be really good to win those things. I'm not a fan of fuel mileage races, Larry, because it takes away from the driver's skill of driving and turns instead to his skill of massaging the car.
Yeah, who can get the best gas mileage? And you're right, Joe. It's like if the NFL tried to sell tickets to people to come to the stadium or tune in on television and see if they could play four quarters before all the air went out of the football. And when the football's flat, whoever's ahead wins. The game's over. And it's so boring. It's as boring as watching a tank run dry. And but I don't know the answer. But that's been part of the strategy since NASCAR has been NASCAR. It's the mechanical part of it and the fuel mileage and that kind of stuff. But man, you're right. When you see the leader turning off his engine to save gas and coasting along, and it just bores you to tears. They need to be out there racing instead of coasting around trying to save a few drops of gas. But again, speaking of someone, Joe, who, as you know, can barely put gas in his own tank at a self-service station, I don't know what the answer is. But I do know, as a longtime viewer of NASCAR, it's the most boring thing you could imaginable.
There were several of us guys who grew up together, we were talking the other night that the biggest difference, Larry, is you don't see mechanical issues now like you used to. Now we say that after watching, the Joe Gibbs teams have some real issues at Daytona. But on the whole, you don't see engines just explode anymore and the big puffs of smoke and billows. Is it possible that mechanically these cars are so good that, when that happens, it's like, wow, it used to be, it was like, oh, well, we blew through three engines, 3 liters went down.
Another engine's blown.
Yeah, but now it's a true rarity.
Joe, we've got race fans that are tuning in, you fans who don't know what a blown engine is.
Well, that's probably true.
And as you say, we used to, it was almost a matter of course, every few laps you'd have somebody going out with a blown engine. And now the commentators have to explain to the new fans what happens when an engine blows.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the cars are so dependable, so reliable. They run them through all these tests with lasers and X-rays and all that stuff. They're so reliable. And when the cars get, bulletproof and the drivers are so good, at some point are we a heartbeat away from robot racing, where you just put an indestructible driver and an indestructible machine and somebody in the control booth like Chad Knaus sits there with his little switches and runs the remote controls around the track.
You're saying drivers are puppets to their crew chiefs now?
A little bit.
You think so?
A whole lot, yeah. But anyway, again, that's, I guess, the ratings are still up. I think the crowds the grandstands are starting to trickle, the fans are starting to trickle back into the grandstands. I think overall, the outlook is pretty bright for NASCAR, but there's still some glitches. As you say, they don't need a whole lot of these fuel mileage races and that kind of stuff. And frankly, they don't need a whole lot more Jimmy Johnson victories. Now, having said that, this is not a rap on Jimmy Johnson. He's doing his job. He's got a great car, a great crew. He's maybe one of the top 4 or 5 drivers in the history of the sport. Jimmy's only doing his job. He's paid to go out and lead laps and win races.
But he's doing
Jimmy, to his credit, is doing his job. By doing his job, he's making everybody else look kind of...
And doing it in a very workmanlike manner.
Yeah, Joe, he almost makes it look too easy. A guy rattles off 5 consecutive championships, and people are yawning. Can you imagine how hard it is to win 2 in a row? I never thought that would happen this day and time. Jimmy not only wins 2, he wins 3. So, well, that's the end of the streak. 4, 5. I mean, that's incredible. And again, a tribute to Jimmy. But fans want to see people win, but they don't want to see the same guy win. It gets boring.
I think the best example that I can give you of that, Larry, and you remember this well, Bobby Hamilton came in as an underdog equipment. Goes out, and everybody wants to see Bobby win. He struggles. He's got the talent. He just didn't have the equipment. And then things started to change. And all of a sudden, by the time he left Nashville, he had not only the best equipment, but he was obviously the best driver. He won 16 out of 24 at one point. And all those cheers became jeers.
Same way with Sterling Marlin.
Yeah, Sterling's another good example.
Sterling was so dominant for so long that even Sterling fans, they continued to cheer Sterling, but you could tell they'd like to see somebody once in a while get up and race Sterling for some of those wins that he was rattling off. So again, not a knock on Jimmy Johnson. He's almost too good for NASCAR's good, is what it comes down to.
Let's take a look at the top 5 finishers and a couple of others that are interesting that came out of Phoenix. Of course, we talked about Carl Edwards winning. Second was Johnson. Denny Hamlin finished 3rd. Keselowski was 4th. Earnhardt Jr., another consistent finish in 5th.
My man.
Yes, 2nd in points now. Danica Patrick went from the pole and a top 10 run to starting 40th and finishing 39th.
Who?
Yeah. In fairness to Danica, she lost a right front tire that was very obvious. And I'm telling you, that's one of the hardest licks,
Yeah.
Thank God for safer barriers, because Larry, if she had hit that wall without a safer barrier, anybody would have been hurt.
Joe,
I was really worried for a minute.
I've seen one effect of Danica being in NASCAR. When she first came in, when she would hit the wall, she would immediately take her hands off the wheel, put them up to her chest. She learned that from open wheel racing because those wheels take the car takes such a lick, and the wheel can twist and break your hands or wrist. Now you notice NASCAR guys are doing it. When the NASCAR guys hit the wall, the first thing to do is jerk their hands away and put them up. And I didn't remember seeing that until Danica brought it to the sport. So she's already had an impact. Having said that, Joe, 2 weeks ago I thought we shouldn't read too much into Danica's great performance at Daytona. That's one race. On the flip side now, I don't think we should read too much into her terrible performance at Phoenix, because that's just one race. I think we're going to have to wait a few more races down the line to see how she's going to fare in the in the big leagues this
You want
year.
to see her whole body of work.
Well,
so to speak.
no pun intended, but
Yeah.
you're right.
I really didn't, actually. Denny Hamlin makes a great big bonsai move on the last lap to take third. I thought that was maybe the most excitement of the race.
Yeah. Went down in the apron.
He did. Of course, they've got that huge apron. Everybody's talking about the shortcut. He took it.
In the old days, if you weren't running in the grass with your left wheels, you weren't racing.
Exactly.
That's why the good Lord made grass down there to race through, so of course use it.
One other thing that happened Sunday, and we haven't seen it in a couple of years because Carl hasn't won, but Carl comes out, does his backflip. Larry, then he turns and heads into the grandstands with the fans. My first reaction the first time I saw it was, man, that's kind of neat. It's a nice thing. You've got some concerns, and the more I've thought about it, you're right. But you've got some concerns.
Major concerns. I don't have any problem with the backflip. If Carl can do it, great. It's good. It makes a good photo opportunity, and he's only risking his neck. When Carl goes into the stands, and this is, there are adult beverages partaken of during a NASCAR race, and some of those fans, when Carl goes wading in there, aren't Carl Edwards fans. You remember a few years ago when he and Keselowski had their little sit-to, and man, Carl didn't want to be anywhere near about half those grandstands after it's over. And Joe, again, it's not necessarily a knock on NASCAR because people at Titans, fans at Titans games drink just as many beverages, if not more, than people at NASCAR fans, and it wouldn't be a good idea for an opposing player to go into the grandstands at LP Field or any other major sports event after a race, because all those people are not fans of Carl Edwards. Some of them don't like Carl Edwards, and some of them might resent how Carl Edwards just got through racing their favorite driver or beating their favorite driver, and all it takes would be one kind of over enthusiastic fan to come up and give Carl a push, or give a fan of Carl Edwards a push, and then all his buddies jump in, his buddies jump in, and all at once you've got a major melee. And it's just, I'm surprised NASCAR takes that chance. They're asking for trouble if they keep doing it, and they should. It's absurd for NASCAR to open that gate and let a driver climb into those grandstands in the immediate emotional aftermath of a race. It's going to be big trouble if they keep it up.
And we'll probably learn that the first time we have the end of a NASCAR race look like a soccer game.
Now, the first time somebody who's not a Carl Edwards fan punches Carl in the nose for wrecking his favorite driver to win the race, and as I say, then all those other fans, all those battling T-shirts pile in, it's going to be trouble. That's my prediction.
Larry Woody has said it. It will happen. We're going to take our first break. Before we do, though, Larry and I kind of planning on getting done early today so we can go down to the batter's box for lunch. Batter's box down at 43 Hermitage Avenue. And by the way, they were not affected last night. They sit up on the hill, so when that big 36-inch water main broke, if you're in Nashville, you know what I'm talking about. No problem. Chris and the guys kept everything going. Everything that was supposed to be cold was cold. From what I understand, it was good and cold. I hate I missed it.
And you're buying, right?
Okay. It's my turn again.
Of course, you've never bought in your life.
We'll be back. I'm not going there. We'll be back with more coming up next on Pit Pass.
Today's show is brought to you by locally owned and operated Highland Rim Speedway. Highland Rim Speedway is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year with great short-track, door-to-door stock car racing in a safe, family-friendly atmosphere. Visit their website at highlandrim.com.